Okay, great. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's personal brand workshop. We are coming to you live from Simplicity Consulting's headquarters in beautiful Kirkland, Washington. I'm Stephanie Chatron, Director of Marketing. And before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. So as I mentioned, we sent a link to the personal brand worksheet in your email, and then I just dropped a link in the chat window. So hang on to that, use it, and if you need anything else or need a copy of it, you can always email marketing@simplicityci.com. And then we are going to have time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. We're going to leave about 15-20 minutes so Lisa can answer all of your questions. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat window during the presentation, but just know that we're going to hold off on answering those until the end. And with that, I'm going to hand things off to Lisa Hufford. She's the founder and CEO of Simplicity Consulting, author of the Personal Brand Playbook, and Navigating the Talent Shift, how to build on-demand teams that drive innovation, control costs, and get results. Okay, you gotta turn your mic on.
All right, hi everybody, this is Lisa Hufford. I am so excited to help you build your personal brand today. So let's get started. My goal for you today is after this session to feel more confident and credible in who you are and be able to articulate your unique personal brand to help you stand out and find fulfillment at work. So the next slide, the next slide to get started is, why do I need a personal brand? So I developed this content about 10 years ago, and really this has been a journey for me because when I transitioned from my corporate career after 14 years to consulting, I didn't know anything about this thing called a personal brand until I was really in a position where I had to differentiate myself and I had to think about the skills I developed and really what did I want to be known for? Why would people want to hire me? And when I transitioned to consulting in 2006, it became pretty clear through my experience in sales and account management that I loved relationships, I loved helping people, and I just loved making a big impact. And so I've done that in lots of different ways throughout now my long career. And when I started Simplicity and doing that work for clients, then I realized pretty quickly that everyone had the same question, because I kept getting people coming to me who had these amazing corporate careers, and they'd say, I want to do what you're doing, I want to be a consultant, here's my resume, what do I do? And I would say, well, what do you really want to do? Out of everything that you've done, what is it that makes you happy? What is it that you feel like is your strength? What's easy for you to do? And when I ask this question over and over again, a lot of people kind of give me this blank stare. They'd never thought about that. They'd never been asked that. So, so these 5 questions we're going to walk through today were really an evolution of talking to lots of people and realizing that this is an opportunity to really reflect on where you are, wherever you are in your career. Maybe you have a lot of experience. Maybe you're just starting out your career. I've taught this content to college graduates, and it's interesting. They already have an idea of what their strengths and their passions are as well. And for many of us that have worked a long time in a variety of different jobs, we have so much experience. Sometimes it's hard to see through what do we really want to hone in and develop and take to that next level. So the importance of personal brand and why you need one out in the marketplace today is perception is reality. We all make snap judgments about people and who they are and their experience by what we are communicating out to the world. So it's on us to be really intentional about the work we want and the work we want next in our lives, rather than just kind of letting it come to us, to really seek fulfillment. And that is such an important word and a movement that's happening right now, people seeking fulfillment at work. And I believe it starts with each of us and determining what is it within each of us that really sparks our excitement right now in our life. And this can change throughout your career. So perception's reality. And as we move to thinking about what is a brand, what can we learn from great brands out in the marketplace, think about the great brands that you're attracted to. Oftentimes I'll hear people, when I've taught this workshop, the one brand that comes up consistently is Nordstrom. And Nordstrom, and everyone says Nordstrom's known for customer service. And I think that's amazing that they have intentionally built a brand around customer service, and in every interaction, people expect a high level of customer service. So great brands really put a stake in the ground and they stand for something. It might not be for everybody, and that's kind of the point. It's really for a specific audience. They know who their audience is, and they target their audience, and they don't get distracted trying to be everything to everyone. Now, what can we learn as people? Well, really, in a lot of ways, we are our own brand too. And if you're out there looking for a job right now, I talk to lots of people that are in transition. Sometimes we have so much experience, we're trying to be everything to everybody that we really don't actually get what we want, or our confidence is lowered because we're not seeking out, we're not getting the responses we need because we're not being specific about what we want. So this is about being really intentional. And this I have found over the years for many people is really hard, because what I'm asking you to do is get more narrow. Get more narrow than it's what's going to feel comfortable for you, because I know most of you have many years of experiences and so many things you can do. So I'm going to encourage you to really think about right now, what is it that really excites you of everything you've done in your career? What is it that you really want to hone on, maybe just for the next couple years, not for the rest of your life? And it doesn't mean to say all of your experience isn't valuable, because it is. But you have to be really clear and really intentional in the market in order to really attract exactly what you want. And then that just helps you target the right opportunities for you for what's next. So moving on to the next slide. So beyond what's a brand as I define it is really the intersection of your strengths and your passions. And we're going to get into this. So your strengths are those things that are just easy for you to do. They're effortless. Your passion is, what is it you love? And when you can match those two, nothing's better than that. And most people that experience this really do experience that fulfillment at work for themselves, and show up, and they're excited about work, and they're excited about the contributions that they're making. So this is a quick assessment on how to think about where you are right now. How are you feeling? So I put strength and passion on these axes. And at the quadrant 1 at the top, and if you can click the next one, it's really this place where I call you're working out of love. And this is where you're working in a position where you feel really strong. It plays to your strengths. You're doing what you love. So you're happy, you're confident, you're in flow. And for many of us, I think we've experienced this over our careers. And thinking about what is it about those roles when you felt that way? And how can you build more into that? If you're in a role today and you're not looking for your next opportunity, and maybe you're kind of in a place where maybe you're not feeling as excited, this is a great exercise to remind yourself, what is it about the role? What can you do more to really instill happiness? And maybe it's just growing a new skill or reigniting passion. Maybe it doesn't mean you have to take a new job. Maybe you can stay where you are and kind of redefine or assess the role that you have to build confidence. So at the other end of the quadrant 3, and go ahead and hit the slide, is really working out of fear. And this is if you're in a role where it really doesn't play to your strengths, and you're just not passionate about it, you have no interest in it. And this is a really dangerous quadrant that I've seen people in, because it can create a lot of insecurity. People can feel scared and defensive. This can really zap your confidence about who you are and your abilities. And I believe every person has unique gifts and talents, and it's really up to each of us to determine what they are and go out and find that. So if you're in this place, or you know somebody in a quadrant 3, the most important thing is to recognize it and to move out of it. It doesn't mean you're not capable. It doesn't mean you're not a good performer. You're just probably in the wrong place. And the wrong role, maybe the wrong company, and it's really up to you to move yourself out of that. And then we move over to quadrant 2. So this is where you're feeling energized, maybe a little uncertain and challenged because you're super excited, you're passionate about this opportunity, but it's not yet a strength. You're still building your mastery. And this is, I think, how most of us might feel with a new job. We're really excited about it. We don't know everything. We're excited to learn and to be able to move into that quadrant 1. And then at the top of the quadrant, quadrant 4, this is where you're really working out of your strength. You develop mastery and competence probably over many years, but you're just not passionate about it. It's effortless for you. You're very competent and capable, but you're kind of bored. So for me, this is kind of how I felt once I got to 14 years of my corporate career, and I didn't really know what it was that was going to make me happy. But what I realized now looking back was I wanted to shift to quadrant 2. I wanted something that energized and challenged me. So for me, I decided to make a career transition to be a consultant, and that really energized me, and I got to learn something new and move to mastery and work out of quadrant 1. And even today, like I've written a couple books, I'm writing another book right now, so I'm always looking for what are those things right now for me in my life that I want, that I can move into quadrant 1 more often. You know, it's unrealistic to think we're always going to be in quadrant 1, but I think the more that we can think about those areas that we really make us happy and really give us energy, and the more we can build those into whatever the role, wherever you are, or in your next opportunity, that's really going to make you even more happy and you even a stronger contributor to the organization. Okay, so now moving. So we're going to move into the worksheet now. So as Stephanie mentioned, if you haven't downloaded the worksheet, you can just get out a piece of paper. Don't worry about right now trying to print it out. It's 5 questions, and you can just do it in your journal on your own, or you can also print this out and do this on your own time. As Oscar Wilde says, be yourself, everyone else is already taken. So that's really the spirit of this personal brand workshop, is to help you understand what that is for you, and to be confident and credible, and to go out there and build your brand and get what you want. So let's go ahead and dive into the 5 steps to build your personal brand. The first step is around awareness. So awareness is around how you're showing up. Are your intentions aligning to really what you want your brand to stand for? So an exercise and a question to kind of dig a little deeper on this awareness question for you is, who do you admire and why? And this is really about the attributes of somebody that you admire. And it could be somebody you know, it could be somebody famous or alive or dead. That's not really the most important thing. The most important thing here is to focus on the attributes of what it is that you really admire about someone. So I'm going to take a few seconds here to pause and have you write down some of those attributes of who you admire. So this is a great exercise to do when you have some quiet time and really think about this. And the exercise and awareness here is for you to reflect on some of the words that you wrote down about other people you admire, and ask yourself if that's what you want to be known for. Because most of us are attracted to people and attributes and qualities in others that we want to emulate and we want to connect with. So for me, you know, one of the people I admire out in the world is Oprah Winfrey, because Oprah is, to me, one of the most generous people. And so generous happens to be one of my personal brand words. And generous means a lot of things to me. It means generous with my time, generous financially with other organizations, generous to other women entrepreneurs and women in general. So I think there's different ways to think about what it can mean to you. But for you, what are those words? And then for me, what I do is I'm constantly kind of assessing, okay, if that's really one of my words, how am I showing up? What are my intentions? Am I living out what I believe is true for me? And how I want to be seen as generous in the world. And so those are very personal kind of values and intentions, but that's really the awareness exercise. Okay, moving on to being unique. So being unique is all about identifying your strengths. This is about what's easy for you, what's effortless for you to do. It's probably what people have told you throughout the years that you're really good at. Maybe even when you were a young child, maybe you were the one that organized everything, or you were really creative, or whatever it was for you. Think about what's easy for you. And oftentimes I'll have to say that I've observed, even through my own career and many people I've talked to, is when you've grown up in a corporate career for the most part, I think reviews have been a lot focused on what you need to improve versus what your strengths have been. And this is kind of the whole intention around strength finders. If anyone's done that, that's another great tool to go through assessment and go to your strengths. And so thinking about how do you really identify what your strengths are, and then how do you do more of that? And what's interesting is our strengths, I think for many of us, feel so easy that we overlook them completely. And I can definitely say this with confidence, especially for women. I'm going to generalize here just because I've talked to thousands of women over the year, and I know this for myself too. I think we always are looking for what's hard. We're like, okay, I've got to go learn that, and that's really hard because we've kind of been trained, versus if something's easy for you to do, you kind of don't really think it's that special or that unique. And I'm going to invite you to really reframe that, because whatever is easy for you is probably your strength. And if you can actually go make a living from where your strength is, which feels easy for you to do, you're just going to feel so much more satisfied in life. I can give you one example. I remember in this workshop, I had a participant say to me, well, I'm a really good writer. But you know, everybody can write, can't they? And I said, no, actually, that's not true. Not everyone's a great writer naturally. And so that's a great example of something that probably was so natural to her whole life. She completely overlooked the value of it. And so what is it for you that's so effortless? Like if you could just get up every morning and do that thing, what would that be? And those were some of your identifiers about strengths. And the other fun thing about strengths over the years I've realized is everybody knows what they are. So whenever I ask this question, no one's wondering or they're not clear. Like everybody actually knows what their natural talents are. And then it's a matter of just being able to really believe that you can confidently articulate them and do more of that in your everyday work. Okay, moving on to be confident. So this is one we just did a fun confidence hack on LinkedIn about. This is such a great question, and this is a question I'm really going to ask you to focus on for after the workshop. This might be the most powerful question that really resonates with people and helps you differentiate your brand. So think about a memorable professional success story. So this could be an experience that you had in your work where you just felt like you were on top of the world. Maybe you got some recognition, maybe you got promoted, maybe you just had a really great, strong sense of completion and work that you got done, of contribution. And I want you to go write that story. And after this workshop, take some quiet time and really reflect on where were you, what were you doing, and what were those attributes that really contributed to making that such a successful story for you. What you're going to find from this story is a lot of clues as to, number one, probably the work you want to do more of, and also reminding yourself of your greatness, because many times we move on and we're so busy in life, we haven't really reflected on what we've done and the contributions we've made. And I'm sure for many of us that have worked for a long time, we have many stories to tell. So this is the opportunity for you to think about what story do you want to emphasize and why? And after you do one story, I'm going to invite you to do two more. So this is really the framework of your next step in really building out your LinkedIn profile, is if you can have 3 stories and 3 words, and we're going to get to your authentic words. Now you have the framework and the basis for your personal brand. And this could be something that you practice. This could be on your LinkedIn profile. This is how you be intentional and consistent around the work that you want to do more of. So these success stories are really powerful. And they're also a great reminder for if you're those days where maybe you're not feeling so great or your confidence is a little low, pull out your success stories and remind yourself, because we all forget sometimes that yes, we have been successful, we have contributed, and we can do it again. So that's your confidence boost and activity to take to the next step. Okay, we're going to move on to be teachable. So be teachable is about being a continuous and ongoing learner. We all know in this life and throughout our careers, we're going to have many different roles and jobs. And the only thing we really can control is our ability to continue to learn and develop our skills. So think about for yourself right now, what is it that you want to learn more about? Maybe you're in a job you love and you just want to become a little more proficient in a certain area, and that's an online class you're going to take. Or maybe there's that conference you've been always wanting to go to. Or maybe it's something as simple as just listening to podcasts 20 or 30 minutes a day on your commute, or when you're walking the dog, or whatever it is, and making them around leadership or business or marketing or whatever it is that really motivates you. It could be reading books. It could be seeking out a mentor around what your area is. You could be thinking about changing an industry. So how are you going to learn about a new industry? Where can you go to find information? There's so many meetups, there's so many events, even just local events. So what is it for you? It's the one thing you want to do to build your skills in whatever area it is you're feeling like you want to build your brand a little bit more around. And go ahead and write that down and give yourself a time frame when you're going to go do that. Okay, and the last step we're going to move to, it might be my favorite, because this is about being kind to yourself. So we've just talked about building your amazing personal brand, harnessing your strength and your passion. And this is the one I see come up the most, because we can write all these things down, but if we don't believe these things about ourselves and we kind of project this out to the world with confidence because we let that inner critic that we all have kind of hold us back, then we're really never going to be able to step into our personal brand and live the life that really each of us deserves. So when you think about this inner critic, you know, a lot of times for many of us, it's totally unconscious. Like we all have it. We all have these little voices in our head that might hold us back or think, who are you to think you can go do that? Or no, they're not going to hire you for all these reasons. You know, we make up all these stories that keep us in a comfort zone. But really what that's doing is holding us back from stepping into our greatness and really living out your personal brand. So think about for yourself when these limitations might come up, what's the one thing you want to do to combat that inner critic? I listened to a woman a few years ago talk about this topic for 2 hours, just the inner critic topic. And she gave a couple tips I'll share if this is something that is you want to work on. And she said, you know, she had a Post-it note next to her desk. And every time she had like that thought, that self-limiting thought, she would just make a check mark just to raise her awareness, how often those negative thoughts were just kind of, you know, bubbling up for her. And she realized, like, you know, she had like 20 of them or something after the first day. And then the next day there were a little bit less, and the next day less. So just by raising her awareness, that was kind of an easy way to just hear that thought, and instead of just letting it happen, pause and go, oh, there's that thought again. That's interesting. And then choosing not to listen to it and just continuing to move forward. So that's really about being kind to yourself, because that's the most important thing. We're so kind to so many of our friends, but oftentimes we're the hardest on ourselves. Each of us are. So this is an opportunity to remember to be kind to yourself. Okay, now we're going to move into putting it all together and truly building out your personal brand statement. So I call your personal brand statement a combination of your what and your why. So your what tends to be what you do. And this is, I think in our society, we talk about our roles a lot. People might say, oh, I'm a marketing manager, or I'm a CEO. So it's fine, that's your title. But really, I think what people want to know about you is your why. Why do you do the work you love to do? Why? What is it about that work that motivates you? So what is your why about the work you do? You know, for me, I love helping people find success in life. I mean, this is why I built the company that I built at Simplicity. We're all about helping people thrive in the new world of work. And that's my mission, my motivation that shows up in a lot of different ways for me and in my why. Sometimes when I talk to people, I'll actually lead with my why versus my what, because really I think that's what they want. You know, I love helping people find success in their work or find fulfillment in their jobs. That's why I decided to build and run Simplicity Consulting. So it gives a little more interest, right? And then when you talk to people, whether it's out there in a job interview or a cocktail party or who knows, wherever else, I'm coming from a place where I've already been very thoughtful about what I want to say about myself. And if they're interested, they'll ask more. And if they're not, that's okay too. But this is about being clear about who I am and being able to attract the people who are interested in what I have to say, just like you. So what is it for you that is your why? Over the years, I've heard a lot of people say their why is around creating order out of chaos. They love to come into organizations and just have a strong set of satisfaction to like make everything run really efficiently. Some people are all about the big impact, the big idea, the big launch, working on really big, public, huge opportunities. Like that's really what gets them going. Some people are really passionate about feeling like they're helping an organization, they're helping leaders, they're contributing, their contributions are valued. So they look for opportunities where they can be helpful. So what is it for you? And it could be anything. It could be, and it's usually a very personal motivation that is the thread throughout your whole life. So think about that why, because that really is the most important thing to understand about yourself when you're seeking out a new opportunity, because you want to make sure wherever you work, you have that values alignment and that your why of who you are and how you want to show up is really connected. Otherwise, no matter what you're doing, what role you have, you might not feel as connected as you could to an organization. For many of us, we've had and will continue to have a lot of roles, a lot of titles throughout your life. That's not as important, I think, as your why, because you can play a lot of different roles and have a lot of opportunities as long as you're really feeling like you're working out of your true motivation. So as you think about building your personal brand statement, on the worksheet here at the bottom, we have your authentic words. And so make sure you take time to think about the words that really resonate with you. And this is a very personal thing. So when I'm teaching this workshop, I'll have people talk out loud about their what and their why. And as they talk, I can tell by their tone and their intensity the words that are really resonant for them. So think about that for yourself. And maybe even talk with people that you know, talk with your colleagues and ask them, like, hey, what do you think I'm known for? What do you think my strengths are? And you don't always, it'd be interesting to kind of get that information, but ultimately you get to make the decision on what you want to say for yourself. I once had a woman in a workshop who was really good at pivot tables, and her whole team said, she's amazing, she's like a magician, she's wonderful at pivot tables. And she went white in this workshop. She did not like hearing any of this. And so I asked her about that. I said, you seem really uncomfortable. And she said, I don't want to be known for that. I don't like that word magician. And so it was this great opportunity to talk with the team about what she wants to be known for. And while she's great at pivot tables, she also had other strengths. And so she got to choose what she wanted to say about herself. And so not to say it's bad that the team thought these things about her, they were very positive, but she gets to choose. And so for you, what is it that you want to choose for your authentic words? What are those words that really resonate for you? And then those are the words that will influence what you really say about yourself, and making sure whatever they are, and that's that feeling you get, like when you're like, yeah, that's my word. I really like that word. And then here's how that word shows up for me out there in the world. That's your story. And when you can develop that and again, put it on your LinkedIn profile, put it on your resume, practice it, be consistent with it. Don't change it up a lot, because that is when when you can work out of that confidence and just keep on message basically about what your story is. That's how you continue to build confidence and continuous kind of brand awareness. Okay, so that was a quick tour through the personal brand workshop. And before we move on to Q&A, I'm going to close with one of my favorite quotes, which I believe instills the essence of what your personal brand is all about, by Howard Thurman. Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our action phase of this workshop. So a couple things to consider if you're out there and you have a team. I do this workshop for teams. If you're interested, it's a great team building activity. Get in touch with us at hello@simplicityci.com. And we'd love to hear what you come up with your brand. Share your brand either on Facebook or LinkedIn. Tag us at Simplicity Consulting. We'd love to promote you and amplify you and hear what you learned from this workshop. So thank you very much for your time and participating. I hope that this information has allowed you to build your brand and be a little more confident and credible out there in the marketplace, and really find that work that fulfills you and helps you find success. So we are going to move on to our Q&A at this point that Stephanie's been managing. So if anyone has any questions or wants any feedback, we have some time here. So go ahead and type in your questions, and I'll turn it over to Stephanie to moderate.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so if you have questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat window. Okay, we have a question from Erica on Facebook. Let's see. Okay, so she's asking, you know, what's an example of some really good personal brand statements that you've heard in the past, Lisa?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing about personal brand statements is, number one, they're really authentic to who you are, because you've got to make sure you can back it up, right? You can't just say things if they're not true. You have to have the evidence to back it up. So that's really where your experience comes into play. But I think the most important thing is that they're clear and they're consistent, and then they have good stories. So it's not like there's any bad words. You can choose whatever words you want that really connect with you. But it's really about, for you, what are those words that where you feel like that really show up. So I just saw a question around what's my personal brand statement. So I'll share this too, because, you know, like many of us, we play a lot of different roles, right? I play a lot of different roles in my life. I run a company. I also am on a couple boards. You know, I'm a mom, right? So in my work setting, I'll say, you know, what my personal brand statement, what my why is really tied to the mission of simplicity, is to help people thrive in the new world of work. And for me, I love helping people find success as they define it. So I have a couple different ways that I think about my brand statement, and then that's kind of my why. And it kind of varies on who I'm talking to, like what words I'll use, but those are usually the things that are really comfortable and resonate with me personally. And then on my what, I might say things like, you know, that's why I own a business. You know, that's why I enjoy building a team. That's why I love doing the board work I do. I love empowering, you know, the next generation. You know, that's why I support entrepreneurial winning women and women entrepreneur programs, because I'm really passionate about women in business. So there's different things of the what, depending on, again, who I'm talking to. So for you, think about your roles. And if right now you're thinking about like a job and you're looking for your next opportunity, okay, hone that in on what's your ideal kind of a role, and then get really clear on your what and your why. You might have other kind of personal brand statements on what and whys depending on different roles and places that you are in your life.
That's great. I love this question from Sarah. So she's saying, how do you best narrow down to a few strengths? So she has a lot of experience. How do you really sift out and pick out those things that are your true way?
Oh, that's such a great question. And you're not alone, Sarah, because I get this one all the time. So if you're one of these people, I'm guessing you probably have a lot of experience and you have a lot of things you enjoy. So I would encourage you to think about the next couple years. Don't think about your whole 10, 20 years, it's too overwhelming. But just think about the next couple years of your career and what do you want to be known for? What is it in a couple years you want to be able to say you've accomplished? And, you know, a lot of times what I have found in my own personal experience with many people is our careers kind of ebb and flow. You know, for me, I was like, I wanted to work for a big company, international organization, travel the world. I did that in my 20s. It was awesome. Then in my 30s, I had a couple kids and was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? I think my laptop's on the wrong wall kind of thing, right? So I think many women can relate to this, right? So I shifted my ladder to, I wanted more flexibility, but I still wanted to work. That's why I became a consultant. And then all of a sudden, people kept coming to me saying, what you're doing, an opportunity to really build what I felt and still do feel like going on 14 is a unique company for people who do care about doing great work and really supporting you. This is why I love talking about personal brand, helping people find that fulfillment of whatever that means to them. So the cool thing about where we are now in 2020 is we have so many options. All of us, we have so many choices. And while that's super empowering, it can also feel really overwhelming. So if you're someone, Sarah, and I'm sure there's many people that can relate to this who are like, oh my God, I've got so many strengths, I've got so many experiences, I'm overwhelmed. Take some time with that. It's okay. You might not have the perfect answer today, take some time with really thinking about what gives you the most energy and excitement right now. Just right now for the next couple of years. And no, it's not going to be forever. Maybe you're in a period of your life you really want to focus on one area, and then you can always go back to it. I know lots of people. I have a really good friend who worked at Microsoft a long time, corporate. She wanted to have more flexibility. She chose to do consulting for about 8 years, very successful. And then she said, I really want to go be a manager. And then she went back to Microsoft and she's a manager and wanted to lead a team. And I just thought, how cool for her that she could choose, depending on where she was in her life, what she wanted to do. And it's so unique. There's not one right path anymore. There's so many paths you can go. It's really up to you where you are right now in your life and what strengths that you want to emphasize. And then also how you want to work. Do you want to work for yourself? Do you want to work for a big company? Do you want to work more on a contract basis and have flexibility? Do you want to be in-house as a full-time employee? The one thing I will say is that there's no guarantees. And I think we all know this in life because there's nowhere that's necessarily, I'll say, safer because we see corporate restructuring all the time. Funding for companies comes and goes, contracts come and go too. So the one thing you can control in our very fluid, fast changing world is your brand. You can control what you say about yourself. This is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about empowering people to own their personal brand, because the more clear you are on your strengths and what you want to do right now, the more likelihood you're going to attract that to you, and you're going to create the career and the fulfillment that you want. So spend some time with all of your strengths and really assess them for yourself. I will also encourage you, if you're really in that place where you're feeling a little lost, maybe you're feeling a little bit in the wilderness, because we all go through those periods, seek out a career coach. There's so many great coaches. If you don't know one, reach out to us. I've got tons of people I can refer you to. They can put you through all kinds of Myers-Briggs and strength finders and really help you sit back and reflect on your strengths and where you want to focus right now.
Love that. So speaking of focus right now, so we have a question from Kim, kind of on the rebrand front. So what advice do you have for an older person who wants to change careers, and maybe they don't have a ton of experience in that field that they want to move into, but they want to position themselves for success?
Yeah, this is a great question. And again, you're not alone. I get this one a lot. So one of the things I will definitely say with people who have a lot of experience is you have a huge advantage. And I think sometimes in our society, people might not see it that way because we see all the younger people coming up, which the younger people are really important too. But for many of us that have a lot of experience, it's really about understanding and being able to sit back and really take time to develop stories about the work you've done, the results you've delivered, and what you want to do next. And whatever it is you're doing, I don't know your specifics, Kim, but I'm guessing that there's things that will transfer to different industries. For example, every function is in every industry, whether that's marketing or sales or engineering. Every company has these core needs. So whatever your core area of expertise is, kind of get to the basis of what are the results you've delivered in your core function. And so I'm making an assumption here that you are going to want to take those skills into another industry. And so this is where the power of LinkedIn is phenomenal, because I would say definitely reach out to your network. Create a list for yourself of people who are working in the industry you want to be in, and really just go out there and put yourself on a listening tour. I did this when I started my company. I just went out and talked to 20 clients, and it was like, what are you looking for in a great consulting company? I'm thinking about building out a great consulting company. What does that mean to you? And everything they told me is what I built. So do that for yourself. Go out into the industry and go find those people. Ask and say, hey, I'd love to buy you coffee. Most people are very generous. They love to talk about themselves and the work they're doing. They're very flattered you would reach out to them. And if they're not, that's okay. There's plenty of people that will give you 30 minutes and literally just send them. I would encourage you, write a list of questions and send them some questions ahead of time so you know what you want to hear. And really, it's just you learning. You're not asking for anything from them, but just their perspective, their information, and their experience. And then when you do this, probably, I'd say 10 times with 10 different people, you're going to see some trends pretty quickly. And you're also going to know for yourself if this is really something that you're excited about. Like, oh, is this industry what I thought it was? Maybe it is, but maybe it's not. Maybe you're like, oh, you know what? I thought I wanted to go that way, and I realized it doesn't actually align with my values, or it's not where I want to be. That's way more important information to know that without a lot of effort and research than actually going and getting a job at a company that maybe you're not as excited about as you thought you were. So take your time with that exercise and do that. And the other resource I'll recommend that I love is called Designing Your Life. It's written by a couple Stanford professors. They teach this course at the Stanford Design School. You can buy the book. There's a workbook online and on Amazon, and there's a great TED Talk. So Designing Your Life is a great resource if you're really in that significant career transition. Seek out those resources. I think you'll find them really valuable.
Great. All right, and a question from Terry. So what advice would you give to someone who wants to step back into the workforce? And I think that's a really relevant question for a lot of moms. I can relate to that one for sure.
Yes. I love that question. I've coached so many working moms. Me being a working mom, I have a soft place for the working moms. So I'm assuming you probably had a career before you had kids. You tell me if you hadn't. What I have seen over the years is many women will come to me and they've had very successful careers, and then they've taken themselves off the career path to raise kids, which is the most admirable and hardest job, as we all know, in the world. So I commend those moms who do that. And then they want to come back in the workforce at some point, and their confidence is really low. And this is always so interesting to me because the skills they had are actually still relevant skills. Nothing's really changed. It's like riding a bike. So this is the exercise of getting back to what are your strengths, going back to your stories, really spend some time on those stories. When were you successful in your career, and start bubbling them up and emphasizing the work you've done and the results you've delivered, not the break in time. I think a lot of women, I've seen this over the years, say, oh, are people going to look at that break in my resume and think I'm not committed or think I'm not experienced? I'm like, no, absolutely not. And if they do, you probably don't want to work for them. They want to know who you are and come back. I still tell my clients all the time, the best hire is a working mom, because you're motivated, you're energized, you're willing to come back and jump in, and you are just like grateful and excited to be back in the workforce and make a difference. So I see this over and over again. I've helped so many women come into Simplicity actually on projects, and it's a total win-win for everybody. So just remember those stories, and then take those stories and emphasize that, and back to being kind to yourself. Watch those inner critic, watch the stories. Clients aren't thinking that. They're not. You just have to say, hey, I took some time off to raise my kids, but let me tell you about all the work I did. I've done this work. Done it before. I can do it again. And if you come in confident like that, then that's what they're going to focus on. So hopefully that helps.
I love that. There's so many good questions. So next from Suzette. So she's saying, what are your suggestions about how you can communicate a strong brand when you're trying to get through all of that noise for an interview and really trying to land that interview so you can have that conversation?
Yeah. So this is I think the question's around like, how do I get noticed to get the interview? Yeah, this is a tough one. So I think the most important thing is just to be super clear, really try to understand the best you can the job you're interviewing for, and to aligning your brand, your LinkedIn profile as much as you can with exactly that kind of an opportunity. So really showcasing specific things. So for many of us who have worked for a long time, we have so much experience. I'm really going to encourage you to tighten up what you want people to focus on in your LinkedIn resume at the top. And you can still have all of your experience, but lessen it. Just make it tighter so that when someone scans your LinkedIn profile, because that's what people do now, again, it's a very quick, literally a 5-second kind of, people are scanning quickly. You don't want them to pause and try to figure you out. You want to be so clear as to kind of work you want next. And it's okay that you've done a bunch of other things. You're going to still have them, but they're going to be minimized. You're going to maximize what it is you want to be known for. And in order to really stand out and increase your options for an interview, you definitely got to connect it so that it just seems like crystal clear with the job opportunity. The other thing, and the next question I would say is, if you're trying to really stand out and get an interview, this is where, again, get into LinkedIn and try to find out within your network is there anybody you know? Is there someone that knows somebody who knows somebody who works in that organization or on that team? Is there any way to get some more information about really what that job is? Because sometimes job descriptions can be really generic, and so it's kind of hard to exactly know. So the more insight, and we all know this, we live in a referral-based world. It's still all about relationships. And so it really is about, I believe, adding value to other people versus asking them. So before you need a job, you should be helping people and adding value. And if you're in a position of influence, you should be taking those coffee meetings for other people to help them. And then, I believe in reciprocation. So at some point it's going to come back around, and then you can reach out to people. So you should always be building your network with authenticity. I'm not saying build it in an inauthentic way, but you should always be caring about people, helping them be successful, because at some point you're probably going to need that too. And most people are happy to reciprocate it. I see that happen all the time.
Okay, and then what about during the interview? Do you recommend that people lead with their personal brand, or is it something you weave throughout, all of those things?
Yes, I have a great example, actually. I just coached a college grad for her first job interview, and we went through this workshop, these questions pretty quickly. She knew immediately what her 3 stories were from her internship she had in college. And I said, what if you go into this interview and you lead with your 3 words and your 3 stories? Because they're probably going to ask you something like, tell me about yourself, right? You can kind of anticipate what most interviewers are going to ask. And really what the goal in an interview is you just want to show that employer that you can add value. You're not trying to impress them necessarily. You're just trying to show up as you, as your authentic self, because you're not going to be anything you're not, and you want to make sure there's a fit, it's a mutual fit. But you really want to go in and you just want to think about it like day one, like, hey, here's what I understand about the job. Here's what I've done before. Here's some stories of what I've done before. Here's what I think I could do for your organization. Is that right or wrong? And sometimes they're going to be like, no, you're way off, but then they'll correct you, and then you'll really know what it's about. They'll be like, yes, that's exactly what we need. And now you differentiate yourself, and you've taken kind of that monkey off your back of, oh, I've got to stand, sit here and answer all these perfect questions. Really, that an employer is just trying to understand, are you the right fit? Are you going to come in and make a difference? Are you going to really add value? That's really what they're trying to understand. So just tell them that. Just tell them how you've added value in the past, and lead with your brand. You could probably weave in your stories to any generic interview question. So if one of your brand attributes you want to be known for is organized. I work with a lot of project managers. They might say I'm really organized. So if someone says tell me how you lead a team, I say, one of the things I'm really proud of is I'm very organized. And my last role, here's how I showed up. I came in, it was chaos. I created a spreadsheet. I got people together. I set up a weekly meeting. I did status reports, so you can give some examples of what you've done. And through that really quick story, you're not only showing that you're organized, you're showing that someone that takes action, you're a self-starter. So you're showing other attributes. And because you practiced it and you're confident, they feel your energy and they feel that. And that's what you really want. You want to feel confident in an interview, and that you're really clear about who you are and what you can deliver. And if they say, that's not what we need here, that's okay. Next, that's part of the interview process. Not every role is going to be the right thing. And that's part of the interviewing. It's like, okay, you're just looking for the yes, and you're learning along the way. But you're clear about who you are, and you're clear about what you want, and you're not going to settle for less than that.
That's great. Really intentional storytelling when you have that interview.
Storytelling, yes, Stephanie.
That's great. Okay, another great question from Andy. So how can she drill down and build that amazing client list? I know she's a designer and a copywriter, so that client list matters, right? Yes. So a list that matches her brand and what she really wants to be doing, though she's in a position now where she really can't turn down any work.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so and I'm guessing for many people, with the reality, you've got to make money, right? You got to pay the bills. So for many of us, we might be in positions where, and it sounds like you're a consultant, Andy, right now, if I'm understanding right. And so you might have some clients that aren't your ideal clients. So number one, get clear on who your ideal client is. And you might already know this, but if you don't, really take some time to outline, are they specific companies? back to what are your values and what are those companies that share your values? And what would that ideal client list look like beyond the companies, maybe the size of company, the role, and then get into the attributes of those people. Because the great thing about being a consultant is you only need to have one person hire you at a time, right? Because you at some point you can't manage. You might have a few clients especially if you're doing freelance design work, but really, like, you can't scale yourself much beyond a lot. So the great news about that is you don't need everybody to hire you, meaning you don't need to necessarily take everything coming at you eventually. But you do have to build a brand. You do have to build a portfolio, especially if someone's just starting it. I don't think that's your case, but it sounds like you might be in a position you're like, this isn't my ideal client, and how do I shift out? So the other great thing about project work is every project comes to an end. So at some point, there's an end date, right? Whatever that is. And maybe that's your motivation to think about and start planting seeds, maybe even 90 days out or more, about who is that ideal client? How do I go target them? Or how do I build awareness? And how do I let them know, hey, I'm not available now, but I'm available in 3 months or maybe even 6 months? Because then, that kind of, you're probably more desirable, actually, because you're not available now. But you have to get really intentional about identifying who those ideal clients are and then letting them know when you're available and what you can do for them. What really you see you can do for them. Sometimes clients or ideal clients don't understand maybe the value you can offer them. So that's part of your job to show them the value. And that's through your stories, through the work you've done and what you can do. Hopefully that helps.
That was great. Okay, so we're almost at time. So I'm going to take the last question because I don't see any others here. So, we've gone through this exercise. People are now going to go define their personal brand. And then what are the next steps for them? So they want to go out in the world, bring their brand to life. What are the next best steps for them to make this real?
Yeah, so I think that this is an exercise that is ongoing. I wish I could tell you could just do it and you're done, you can put it on the shelf, but the reality is we're always growing and evolving as people. That's part of, just living and life and experiences. And so I have many people will come back, many consultants will come back and take this workshop a couple of years later just to stop, pause, reflect on what they've done, think about what they really want to do next, and be really intentional about it. And so I'd say if you're feeling stuck, whether you're in a job now or you're looking for a job or whatever it is, pause and come back to some of these really seemingly simple questions about your awareness, where your strengths are, what makes you unique, your confidence, those success stories. Teachable, maybe you're just bored, you need to just go do something new and build some skills and some new mastery. That's the teachable. Or being kind, maybe you need to work on yourself. So if you kind of just come back and see what resonates with you right now and on an ongoing basis, it'll probably give you that confidence to continue to take action and really work with intention to continue to find the work that really fulfills you.
That's great. That feels like a nice place to end. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I hope this was informative. I learn so much every time I do this workshop. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or you want Lisa to lead one of these workshops with your team. And please do share your personal brand story or your statement. So once you have that dialed in, share it on social, share it with your networks, and tag us so we can see it. So thank you for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.